It's just, you see his truck there and some protesters who've been singing the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, but it's the Gingrich Who Stole Christmas. And it's changed dramatically. Gingrich himself has said that the attack ads in Iowa have, quote, turned Iowa into a mess just a minute ago, essentially acknowledging that his numbers are down as a consequence of the beating he's been taking on the air. The poll in Iowa from Scott Rasmussen today shows that Mitt Romney is back in the lead with 25%, that Ron Paul has now surged to a comfortable 20%, and Newt Gingrich has slipped into the teens. It's a dramatic turnaround and is now appearing in multiple polls in Iowa, a clear sign that Gingrich is having trouble in the popularity polls. Got to emphasize here, Shep, that polls at this juncture, with the caucuses and primary just so close, begin to lose some of their merit. They tend to run behind where the public sentiment is, and it surely shows that Gingrich is having a problem with his popularity in the polls. Then comes the ground game, and he's trying desperately to get enough boots on the ground to be competitive in the caucus. Here in New Hampshire, Romney has a huge lead, and because Iowa and New Hampshire both seem to be trending towards Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich has a lot of catching up to do, and if he doesn't get critical, that's going to make it more difficult.
Yep, critical is the way it works. Carl Cameron live, Manchester this afternoon. Carl, thanks. Meantime, the Ron Paul campaign reportedly has some Republicans a bit concerned, and that's because he could prove to be a spoiler this election. The Texas congressman has been polling very well in Iowa, and many, including our own analyst Ed Rollins, believe he'll win there, including Republican strategist whom I just mentioned. Ed Rollins said yesterday Ron Paul will win Iowa, but his chances in a general election are seen as slim. However, if Ron Paul makes a run as a third-party candidate, if he does, he could take a lot of votes away from the Republican nominee. That said, with us now is the GOP consultant Terry Holt. Terry served as a senior communications strategist on 3 different presidential campaigns, including Bush Cheney in 2002 and again in 2004. Terry, nice to see you.
Hey, Shep.
Ron Paul as spoiler. I know their concerns because I've heard it from a lot of insiders. I just wonder what you think the chances are that he'll actually run as a third-party candidate.
He'd definitely be a drag on Republican votes if he decided to run as a third-party candidate. You know, as a younger man and as a libertarian, Ron Paul did run for president in a different party, but over the years has stayed within the Republican confines, and frankly, although it would be damaging if he ran as a third-party candidate, I really see him doing well enough in this process. He could be the Republican candidate, Shep.
You really think he could, Terry? Come on.
Well, I don't. I'm being a little bit flip, but what I see here is a guy who doesn't have, you know, other guys who've run as a third-party candidate. You think of Ross Perot and others, Ralph Nader. I looked at them as having monstrous egos that they're really promoting themselves first. And Ron Paul's different than that. You know, he's a humble man. He's a person who truly is affixed to his ideas. He's not influenceable in any way. I just don't see him putting the country at stake, because I think, in fact, you're right, that if Ron Paul chose to run as an independent candidate, he wouldn't be elected president, but he would virtually assure Barack Obama would be reelected as president.
Yep, and I'm sure he knows that. And what you're saying is you don't think there's anything that the party could offer him. There's no prize for him here. He's not the kind of guy who would go for that.
I think it would be a mistake to try. I mean, this is a person who over time he wasn't even a person as a House member when I was a leadership staffer that we even really went after to try and get his vote. We knew he was going to stand on his own principles. That's why people love him. And in fact, it wasn't really worth trying to make a deal with him because he already had his mind made up.
Terry Holt on Capitol Hill this afternoon. Terry, good to see you. Thanks.
Thank you, Shep.